When you think of World War II strategies, images of tanks, aircraft and massive battles come to mind. Rarely do you consider the simple loaf of bread as a weapon of war, but in reality bread was a frontline tool in the battle for survival, morale and control. Controlling wheat supplies and the production of bread was not just about feeding populations. It was about breaking economies, manipulating civilians, and shaping the outcome of entire campaigns. For a history enthusiast or prepper, understanding how bread became strategic can teach us not just about wartime logistics, but about resource control and resilience in extreme conditions. The story begins with the fundamental reality armies and nations run on calories. Bread, made from wheat, rye or other cereals, was the primary source of daily energy for millions across Europe. A soldier's ability to march, fight and endure depended directly on the quality and quantity of their rations, and civilians relied on bread as the cornerstone of daily sustenance. During World War II, shortages in bread could cripple a population faster than bombs. Nations quickly realized that controlling bread was controlling life itself. The rationing of bread dictated both civilian morale and national stability. In Germany, Britain and occupied territories, bread rationing was not merely an inconvenience. It was a tool for maintaining or undermining loyalty. The Nazis, for instance, understood that morale on the home front was critical for sustaining the war effort. When wheat imports were cut off by Allied blockades, German civilians faced strict rationing. Whole loaves disappeared, replaced with ersatz bread made from fillers like sawdust or acorns. These rations were often nutritionally inadequate, leading to widespread malnutrition, fatigue and social unrest. In contrast, Britain's Ministry of Food used bread rationing strategically to maintain morale. They introduced fortified bread and consistent rationing, giving citizens the sense that resources were being fairly managed. Here, bread became not just a physical necessity, but a psychological anchor. Civilians felt protected and connected to the war effort, which directly translated into resilience. For a prepper historian, the lesson is clear. Control over staple foods directly affects social cohesion, whether in wartime or survival situations. Bread shortages were used deliberately as a weapon in occupied territories. One of the most striking examples of bread as a weapon came in occupied France, Poland and the Netherlands. Nazi and Axis forces manipulated flour distribution to suppress resistance movements. Cities where resistance activity was strong would see bread rationed down to barely a fraction of daily needs, causing hunger that made organizing against the occupiers more difficult. Starvation itself became a tool of oppression, showing that control over wheat production and distribution could achieve what conventional weapons could not. Similarly, in the Soviet Union, scorched earth policies meant burning wheat fields and destroying mills ahead of advancing German troops. Depriving enemy populations of bread forced retreat or surrender without a single bullet being fired. The strategic deployment of famine demonstrates how essential food logistics were, and still are, in shaping the outcomes of conflict. For military planners, bread was never just a civilian issue. Armies needed constant, reliable supplies to maintain mobility and combat effectiveness. The Allied forces invested heavily in securing wheat shipments across the Atlantic. Convoys transporting flour and wheat became targets for German U-boats precisely because the loss of bread could destabilize entire nations. On the Eastern Front, the German Wehrmacht's failure to secure local grain stores contributed directly to supply chain collapses that stalled advances and weakened troops. From a prepper perspective, this highlights a crucial survival principle. Understanding and controlling key food sources is as strategic as any defense plan. Fortifying grain stores, rotating supplies, and, identifying alternative calorie sources could mean the difference between resilience and vulnerability during crises. Bread was also a factor in diplomacy. Countries leveraged wheat exports and flour availability as tools to negotiate alliances or punish adversaries. The United States Lend-Lease program, for instance, sent massive quantities of flour, sugar and canned bread to allied nations, ensuring that civilians and soldiers alike could endure. Meanwhile, countries cut off from these supplies experienced not just hunger, but economic collapse, leading to weakened political structures and increased susceptibility to enemy influence. For today's history, buffs and survivalists, understanding this link between food, economy and power offers practical insights. Maintaining control over essential staples, diversifying sources, and recognizing how food scarcity can influence social behavior are lessons that translate directly from World War II to modern preparedness strategies. Beyond historical interest, this knowledge has practical applications. If you're prepping for emergencies, consider the ways in which staple foods like grains can influence outcomes. Stockpiling wheat, knowing how to mill it into flour, or even learning to make high-calorie bread from alternative ingredients ensures that your community can survive shortages. Understanding the psychological and social effects of scarcity also allows a prepper to anticipate challenges, keep morale high, and maintain cohesion under stress. Ultimately, World War II shows us that warfare isn't just fought on the battlefield. It's fought in kitchens, bakeries and storage silos. Bread's role in history reminds us that survival is as much about logistics, nutrition and resource management as it is about tactics and weapons. If you found this insight into the strategic role of bread fascinating, there's plenty more where that came from. Subscribe to The Prepper Historian and share this with fellow history enthusiasts so we can continue to explore the hidden threads of survival, strategy and ingenuity that shape the world. History isn't just about the past. It's a toolkit for understanding resilience today.